Welcome to Asian Culture Vulture. We're here at the Manchester International Festival and we're going to be talking to the poet Imtiaz Dharker. Welcome to Asian Culture Vulture, Imtiaz.
Thank you so much.
Tell us a little bit about your participation in the group show Poet/Artist.
Well, Manchester's alive and buzzing. And what happened was that someone called Lemn Sissay, the wonderful poet Lemn Sissay, got together with the curator, the art curator, Hans Ulrich Obrist. And they had this great idea of bringing together people who were poets and also did art, or artists and also were involved with the use of words and leaning in the direction of poetry. And there turned out to be quite a lot of us. And it is astonishing how much of that is happening. Because the thing is that so much of art, we create these artificial borders between art and word and body and dance and music, but actually they all breathe into each other. And in a way, that's what Lemn and Hans Ulrich Obrist managed to do, which was to allow us all the space where our arts could, our words and our visuals, our art could breathe into each other.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. So you have participated along with a group of artists in this show. And do you want to...
Yes, not just any group of artists. I mean, it is astonishing to me to be in the company of some of these incredible people. Lubaina Himid, Tracey Emin. It is, people who are doing work at the top of both fields, with their working with words and with color or line of various kinds. Gozo, the Japanese artist, Adonis, the poet Inua Ellams, the poet and artist J. Bernard. They're all doing work in this area, and the work is there, and I hope everyone will come and see it.
So do you want to tell me a bit about your own piece in the exhibition?
Yes, well, about my own piece, I've always worked with poems and drawings, pen and ink drawings. And people often ask me where they intersect. And actually, I don't know where the line can suddenly become a poem or where it can suddenly decide to change course and become a drawing. I have these notebooks that I carry around with me on the street. And, when I'm walking or when I'm going around, I might suddenly find that I want to write a poem, or there might be a drawing inside as well. It's little notebooks of handmade paper, so I can carry those around. And then what that becomes is a book of poems, and luckily my publisher has always agreed with me, so in the book of poems is always my own drawings as well. So there might be something where there's a poem on one page and the facing page has a drawing. And I work in pen and ink, black and white, and that makes it quite simple to reproduce as well. The whiter the white, the blacker the black, the better for me.
But it's quite stark in that sense.
It is stark, and I like that. I like the purity of black and white. When I first went to India, I grew up in Scotland, and the light's quite soft a lot of the time in Scotland. But when I first went to India, I realized that in spite of all the color that you get, at 12 o'clock suddenly, because of the harshness of the light, there's very, very sharp 12 o'clock sunlight, and suddenly, if you're looking at people's faces, everything turns to black and white because the highlights are so strong and the shadows are so deep that suddenly you've got a black and white image. And I began to see it like that, and I wanted that strength, the purity in a way of the black and the white.
So in terms of the poem that you've got in this show, Poet/Artist, or should I say the artwork that you have in this show, Poet/Artist, I mean, can you tell us a bit about it, and also like what inspired you to create, it's called Breath or Breathe? My Breath,
This is a poem, the artwork I did here was based on a poem called My Breath. And what I did was I started with the image of a draped woman. And through the lines of the drape, the veil, the parda, the dupatta, or whatever it may be, you can see the shape of the body, but you can see a living body inside, but it stretches across a triptych, it stretches across 3 fairly large sheets of paper to become lines that could almost be the breath of the woman. And by the 3rd sheet of paper, it becomes the poem called My Breath. And the words, the lines of the poem merge. If you see it at a distance, they merge into the lines of the drawing. It was a way of extending the idea of breath out of her body onto the poem. And somehow it never has seemed like a division to me. It's always been a natural extension where the poem becomes the image and the image becomes a poem.
So is this whole poet/artist show, is it inviting the audience to be a bit more, let's say, contemplative in the way that we might look at poetry or look at art?
Well, there have always been traditions, Urdu, Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, where the calligraphy, the writing, is very much part of the poem. And it's pretty much, when you look at the voices here, it stretches across swathes of the world, and you see that represented here. You see that natural growth from one thing into the other. The world spills into, things in the world are not separate. They spill into each other, they bleed into each other at times. It may be that when the world is hurt, there are edges that bleed into each other. When it's healed, the healing is a kind of joining of the wound, maybe. So I see this as almost a kind of healing process.
Could I request you to recite a few lines from your poem?
I read the poem.
Yeah, please, thank you.
My breath. Walls are paper. Have you ever listened through them for my breath? Do you remember the shape it used to have inside my body? It is impatient to be let out, sent on its way from village into town, as if it were a message that could matter to someone. My breathing is calmer, now that the need is simplified to seeing another dawn. You're waving to me. My neighbor is lighting a fire. Wood smoke makes everything real, as if the world has shifted back, shivered into the shape it used to have, before they made new maps, before the documents changed hands.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.